Hello, this is Writers at Work, a podcast for readers and writers about the joys, heartaches, challenges, and satisfaction of the creative writing process. I'm your host, Jim Fusilli. Joining me on this episode of Writers at Work is Sarah Lampert, writer, executive producer, and creative force behind Ginny and Georgia, the smash hit now in its third season on Netflix. Sarah is a bit of a miracle in today's media landscape. As I understand it, Sarah wrote the pilot during a writing class. This is her first program. I'll ask her to tell us how Ginny and Georgia came to be. I said smash hit a few seconds ago. How smash? In its second season, launched in 2023, Ginny and Georgia was the most watched show on Netflix from January into June of that year. Per ad week, one episode achieved 162 million hours viewed and was in the top 10 list in 88 countries. Other episodes pulled in a huge global audience as well. But popularity is one thing and quality is another. For the uninitiated, Ginny and Georgia is the story of a family trying to find its place. Ginny is a 15-year-old who is whip smart and sensitive. Her younger brother Austin is a sweet magnet for bullies. And Georgia, who had Ginny at 15, is rebuilding a life after suffering abuse by men. Her assets are a quick wit, bottomless resolve, and sexy charm. All three leads are abetted by a large cast of complex characters, most of whom are at least as imperfect as we all are, and beset with problems worthy of a daytime soap opera. But Ginny and Georgia is much more than a soapy pastime, especially when we are with Ginny, who is experiencing high school life in what appears to be a social and sexual minefield. Sarah and the writer's room keep several always believable, if incredible, plots moving forward. I found myself deeply engaged during several heartbreak scenes, beautifully rendered, that brought me back to days long gone by. And I should add, there's ample humor and murder in the mix. How does Sarah and her team do it? Let's ask. Sarah Lampert, welcome to Writers at Work.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm sure you've told the Ginny and Georgia origin story so many times, but would you mind just telling our listeners how the series came to be?
Absolutely. It changes each time I tell it. So
Good. That's the writer's mind at work. Good for you, Sarah.
exactly. I will say I can kind of finally give the real answer because I couldn't, because the real answer would have spoiled season 3.
Wow.
But the real answer was the origin of the idea was actually the opening of season 3, which was just the idea of a high school girl like walking down the hall and having a normal life prior to this, but having her whole world rocked as her mother was arrested for being a murderer, potentially of more than one person. And the shockwaves that that had on the daughter was the first origin of the idea. So in my head, it really started with that walk Ginny does down the hall after her mom's arrest at the top of season 3 was the very first kernel of the idea.
Now you were in a writing class at this point.
So I had that actually. I had a one sheet. I worked my background's in I was an assistant in reality TV for 8 years when I moved to LA. So I had been frustrated with myself. I'd gone through a bad breakup. I hadn't written anything in a hot minute. So I signed up for an online writing class at UCLA Extension just to get myself to have some deadlines. I find deadlines are very helpful for a writer, or for me. I won't speak for writers at all, but I signed up for this class, and they were like, okay, bring in an idea that you would want to finish script by the end of this class. And I have all these different one sheets of all these different potential scripted ideas. And I landed on that one. It seemed fun. I love mother-daughter. I'm very close with my mother, with my family. I love mother-daughter relationships. I love high school. So that was the one I landed on.
So in essence, Sarah, you bet on yourself.
Yes.
Were you always that type of person? Someone who proceeded with confidence?
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a dick, like I would say I was probably the only one who wasn't surprised by the show's success. Or not that I was the only one, but I wasn't surprised by it. I have always believed in myself. I think that that comes from that the family connections I mentioned before. My family are so supportive, almost to a like pathological degree. They're so supportive. There's like a joke in my family that you can't let the family know when you develop an interest in anything because they'll go overboard. Like I bought just to tell a quick story.
No,
uh,
please.
I bought myself when I was in high school. I bought myself a purple blanket for my bed. I think I thought it was like fuzzy and fun, whatever. My mom got it in her idea that purple was my favorite color. So I came home from school one day and my entire bedroom was painted purple.
Oh,
And from that point on, like any holiday, birthday, whatever, I would get purple gifts from every family member.
oh
Like
my.
so I to the point where I finally, my grandparents, I finally had to say something. I don't to be honest, I don't like the color purple. I actually dislike that color. I think I just liked this fuzzy blanket. But my grandparents got me a poem that was framed called "I Love Purple," and that was the last straw for
That
me.
was it.
So yeah, that level of support from my family, I think is definitely what I'm blessed. I mean, it's the only reason I'm here, honestly.
Well, did you say to your family at some point, I want to be a writer?
Yep, I sure did.
And they said,
They were on board. So I wanted to be actually an actor, writer, director. Like I just knew I wanted to do storytelling. That's really what it was. I wanted to tell stories, and I discovered that I'm a much better writer than I am actor. I have all the respect in the world for acting. I went to college actually for a theater degree, and then I ended up doing English as well. And then when I moved to LA, I realized very quickly I wanted to pursue writing. And but I didn't know what a showrunner was. I didn't know how it worked. I just didn't know anything. But they were really supportive. They were on board for me to move to LA. I mean, I think when it got to the point where I was 8 years into being an assistant is when they started to question it a little bit. I remember I was at brunch with my friends and I got a calendar invite from my mom that was just labeled discuss Sarah's career/future.
oh
Like
my.
the only invites were me, my mother, and my father. So they definitely got nervous at some point, but no, they've always been really supportive of me.
And did you because other careers tend to have a more logical arc to them. How did you explain that these kind of uh, hills and valleys were not unusual and that you were at least somewhat well positioned to pursue what you wanted to do? I mean,
Oh,
if you were an accountant and you were a junior accountant,
right.
and then you got promoted to senior accountant, that's a kind of understandable career arc, right?
Yes.
But being a writer of any kind, but a
Yep.
screenwriter in particular, doesn't often have that kind of logical progression.
Sure. Well, so deciding where to go to college, I probably should have thought about it starting then. I didn't. I went to Muhlenberg because when I went to visit there, people were wearing sweatpants and they gave me free cookies on the tour. And that both of those things were really important to me. So I went to Muhlenberg. I loved Muhlenberg. I mean, it was the best 4 years. Like, it was great. But then graduating Muhlenberg, I really had no plan. And I knew I just wanted to move to LA because that's where TV was made. And I've always just loved TV. So even though my degree was in theater and I really knew nothing about TV, yeah, I didn't think it through. I'm not one to have the most logical plan always. I'm going to be honest, but I think it's just a testament that not everyone's path is linear and there's no really
Right.
one right way to do it. Like how you live your life will determine how you get to where you're supposed to go. There's no correct path. So when I got to LA, I just got the first, I mean, I was a waitress for a while. Um, and then I got the first assistant job I could, which was being the assistant to a talent manager. And then from there, I was able to get different assistant jobs. I found myself, like I said, working in reality TV, which at the time it was like 2011, I want to say. And reality TV was really having its boom. Like it wasn't as accepted and established and dare I say respected as it is now. It was still kind of like the dark horse of TV. So that was like a fun time to enter reality TV because there were really no, it was a little lawless at that moment. So I was really blessed because my boss, I've always had very supportive bosses, and my bosses would just bring me along. Like I got to pitch reality TV shows to my bosses. It was just less structured and less like, I think, gatekept as scripted TV was at that time. And
Uh-huh.
so you were really, I was like, before I had ever pitched, Ginny and Georgia was my first pitch of anything that I had written, but I had been on, upwards of 50 pitches, just being the one in the room to man the PowerPoint presentation for all of these different reality TV shows that we were pitching at, every network in town, NBC, VH1, MTV, like everything. So I really credit my bosses throughout my career as giving me the opportunity just to learn how to pitch before I ever had to do it myself.
Right. But Sarah, there are, people have to position themselves to receive luck, you know?
Mhm.
And what you saw as a training exercise, 50 times witnessing a pitch, you saw as growth. There are other people who would have looked at it as just pure grunt work and hated it. Do you know what I mean?
I suppose so. I mean, I had a bunch of friends, you kind of come up together as an assistant in Hollywood. You kind of have a graduating class of assistants, so to speak. And I had a bunch of my friends get the jobs as like writers assistants and then become staff writers and work their way up that way. And my strategy was, and I went out for some of those jobs and didn't get them. But my strategy was, I'm going to try to get a job in development because that way I can put my scripts on the pipeline from writer to agent to production company to buyer. And I would bypass the first two steps of that and just be at the development stage and hopefully get my script more closely just to buyer, which is
Yeah,
exactly what happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the series in depth, but I just want to touch on something you said earlier. Did you in high school have someone like Ginny's poetry professor, someone who's encouraging? Conversely, did you have someone like her AP English teacher who is so discouraging?
Um, I would say that a lot of the stories that Ginny goes through are either pulled from my experience or from the experiences of writers in the room. Um, I it's hard to distill that down. So no, there's not one person who is Mr. K or one person who is Mr. Gittin, but I think
Okay.
a lot of what Ginny goes through, really, especially with Mr. Gittin, but also with Mr. K, were really pulled from a culmination of different writers' experiences in the room. Some of mine, some not mine, of her navigating her navigating her world. But I can't say there's one person that inspires either of them, but more about the writers in the room kind of coming together and crafting the stories for Ginny based on, real life experiences that.
Yeah, I thought you and your writers handled that so beautifully because, a creative soul in the first blossoming of a creative soul can be crushed so easily and or can be nurtured so beautifully. And you know, Ginny is somewhere in the middle until a certain point in the third season.
Yeah, I think by the time we got to the third season, we were really craving giving her a teacher that inspired her and that recognized her potential and recognized the gift she has. And so that was really where Mr. K was born from. And I think everyone can relate to having a teacher who believes in them and how much just one teacher can make such a difference in a child's life forever. And you never really forget them. And in the same token, a bad teacher, you also
Yeah, for
kind of
sure,
forget.
for
But I
sure.
think for season three, the development of Mr. K is, we had kind of completed the Gittin arc in the sense that she dropped out of his class because she couldn't deal with the microaggressions or even the macroaggressions anymore. But she was really the one who was punished for that. Like she had to drop down 2 levels, which was a heartbreaking thing for her to see. One of my favorite scenes is when she's in class It's the first time we see her in curriculum 2, and she's got her Romeo and Juliet book out, and she's read it, 2 times before in other schools. It's all annotated, it's all noted, and she's looking around and no one in the class is taking that class seriously. And we just see that she's the one who's suffering here. So I think the writers in season 3 in the room, a big discussion we had at the top of that season was, what do we want to see with Ginny's poetry this season? We had a few poets in the room. Yeah, and I think we just really wanted to see a teacher encourage her poetry.
Right. Okay, so here's I've been trying to come up with a way to ask this question, and
Sure.
I don't know how to do it. So I'm just going to say this. I've watched every episode intensely. There is no way that your series checks any boxes of my interests. If I hadn't had this assignment, I'm not sure I would have watched your show.
Sure.
Okay, that said, I really loved it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm completely hooked. Um, and I really am very concerned about some of the characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's I don't think there's a character my age in the story. I don't think there's any grandpas in the story that we see. I mean, George's father turns up telephonically, but I mean, this is an odd question, Sarah.
Sure.
How did you get me interested and keep me interested?
You know, I wish I had a better answer, but like I think I just write from the heart and try to make these characters feel as real as possible. I think, I also can't take all the credit. It really is such a joint effort, this show. I think you see in watching the show how many people are really bleeding for the show. For me, when I write, it doesn't make sense for me. It was interesting coming into this process because I had never been in a writer's room before this show. I had never been on set that wasn't a reality TV set before this show. So for me, my first time in the writer's room, I had no idea what the process was of writing a TV show. So a big learning curve for me in season 1 was figuring out how to take my process and like open it up and include others and use the room for the really utilize the other like brilliant writers and voices and tools and experiences of the other writers in the room. Um, and I say all of that because part of my process is just starting from a place of emotion, like what's something that happened to me that made me feel a certain way at some point, and starting there and then building out from there, as opposed to like, okay, what's the plot this season? Like and it's interesting because the show has so much plot. I mean, when you try to describe the plot back to anyone who hasn't seen the show, you end up sounding like a lunatic because you're like, and then, you sound
Right.
crazy. But because all of the writers really are pouring their heart into it, and I really encourage us always to start from a place of just emotion and character, and you know sometimes inspired by true life, even if it like that exact story doesn't make its way into the show. Just what did you feel when that happened? Like just as human as we can get it is always the goal, and then working backwards from the truth of that emotion in that moment, and then building out into the plot and the arcs and the story breaks and the whatever else, the format of it all. But yeah, I would answer that the show, everyone who works on the show really leads from heart first and really leads from a place of feeling. How do you feel? Because it's that's the way to make the characters feel really real and really resonate.
Yeah, as a writer, I agree with that approach 100%. When people say, "What's your story about?" they're not asking you to recite the plot.
Right.
They want to know what is the emotional subtext of your story.
Yes.
And so what you encourage, I think, is ideal. My reaction to it, do you get that much? I mean, are there people who say to you, "I don't know why I like your show, but I really do."
Oh yeah. I mean, we've been we've been critically panned.
Oh, that's not right.
Oh, it's fine. I honestly like it's a labor of love. Like the show really is for. I think right. I can't speak for the other writers, but I'll speak for myself. Writing the show, it really does heal a part of me, um, and I'm a little bit writing for me when I was in high school. So I think that because of that, it really invites everyone to revisit things that, because it's a coming of age story at the end of the day, right? It's not
Right.
just Ginny's coming of age, but George's coming of age too. And they've both been through so much. And that I think is the place that we're really stemming from. And because of that, people can relate to it. But no, we've gotten, I mean, because the show is wacky. Like, let's be real.
Right.
The
Right.
show is absolutely fun and wacky as much as it's heartfelt and earnest. And I think that the reason it's able to play with tones in that way, um, is because that's life. It's messy. It's humor and sadness all wrapped up into one. And that's, the show doesn't like try to be something it's not. Like we know, like we're not trying to do anything. Like we're just trying to tell a story. And then anyone who wants to find that story and whatever they want to find in that story, it's kind of an open invitation. We're not trying to dictate what people get out of it. So I think that for us, we've gotten all sorts of, one of my favorite, sorry, I have ADD in case you can't
No, no,
tell.
go right ahead. No,
But
please.
one of the things that one of my favorite reviews of the show was in season one. I think it was a Canadian reviewer. I wish I could credit their name because I genuinely loved this article so much. But the review title was Ginny and Georgia is Guy Fieri's trash can nachos, and I hungry, hungry raccoon. And I just loved that.
That's
It's
funny.
like, yeah, I just think that there's such a disservice. Sorry, I'm gonna get on a soapbox for a second, but
No,
I think
go right ahead, please.
there's such a disservice done to content that is specifically marketed and geared towards young women, where it's just not taken seriously in the same way that other shows are. And our show is a fun show. Like I equate it to, visually we're going for the style of like Mean Girls, right? We want things pink and pretty and poppy. But that doesn't discredit like what the audience is relating to and kind of what the characters are going through. Um, so yeah, I don't care what the critics say, but I very much care that fans get something from it and feel connected to the characters.
Right. I mean, the audience, I gather, the target audience is YA, and we all were YA at some point,
Yeah.
you know? And you know, I was going to ask, how do you write for YA audience? But I can see how you write for Ginny, Max, Marcus, Abby's high school scenes
Sure.
for a younger audience. But um, again, I'm speaking for myself. They did resonate with me too.
Yeah.
And I went to high school 55 years ago, but they resonated as so true.
I,
Maybe it's a universal thing. I don't know.
well, I think part of it is mental health because I think that one of the core, you know, like one of the core themes of the show is mental health. And we take that really seriously. And I think that is really relatable to a lot of people because everyone has mental health, right?
Right.
It's just like everyone has physical health. It's something that everyone has. Um, and we really take that seriously. So we have a psychologist who has been a consultant on the show ever since season one, who we really base the storylines around conversations with the psychologist that we have. We chat with her just things like, if Ginny and Georgia were to ever have a healthy relationship, what would need to happen for Ginny? What would need to happen for Georgia? And then based on her answers, we kind of base plot around that. So we're grounding all of this kind of like pulpy, salacious plot in just like very real mental health storylines, and also emotional connections of relationships. Um, and then we also partner with Mental Health America because, I think there's a responsibility that comes with telling these kinds of stories, especially knowing half our audience is young. You'd be surprised. Half our audience is 30 and above, half is 30 and below. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah, it's not just you. It's a little bit of a universal story. And I don't think we thought about who the audience was when we were writing season one. I think we just wrote what we wanted to write, really. And the audience kind of found it.
You handle the mental health aspect in an interesting way, and I'm so loath to give spoilers, so just cut me off
Okay.
if I go too far. Um,
Well, you'd be TikTok's done it for you.
all right,
We're spoiled. Don't worry about it.
okay, because we see Marcus disintegrating,
Yes.
but we don't see Max's issues, but we suspect them.
Yeah.
You know, I love Max. She's my favorite character, but being a father and a grandfather, I thought, no, 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 something is off here. We're not listening to her. There's a subtext here.
Yeah.
Is that what you went for?
It's so hard to answer these questions with just one answer because there are so many answers to each question. And so for Max, so I guess I'll start with the inception of Max. I gave Max my voice. Like she's of all of the characters, she's the most like me.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and then I also, when we found Sarah Waistglass, who plays Max, like when I tell you I bolted upright, I was in bed watching these auditions come in, and I bolted. She was like 12th in a list of like 30. I bolted upright. It was like
Wow.
I can't even. So for her, I mean, her range is fantastic, but I really feel like there's no one else that could do it. I feel that way about many of the actors in the show. If I'm proudest of anything in the show, it's probably who we cast, because I think casting the right person is half the battle, or more than half the battle, frankly. For us, for writing a successful TV show, but for Max and her character, it really crystallizes a few different things. I think you can't talk about Max without talking about Marcus, because they're twins and they're two sides of the same coin a little bit. But where Marcus, we start with him, right, into his inner life, and we highlight the fact that he is depressed, he's going through it, and now in season 3 we kind of also add in the fact that he is struggling with substances. He's now, he's abusing alcohol. But if you look at season 1, that's kind of been hidden there all along. Our first introduction to that character is him smoking weed and getting yelled at by Ellen, before he even interacts with Ginny or Georgia. So we've been laying the groundwork for that. But with Max, I think the flip side of her is, because Marcus is so obviously not okay, and she says that this season, she kind of has to be okay for her parents.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
definitely older. I'm the older sister. I have 2 brothers. She's definitely the oldest sister vibes. And there's also, and then kind of, and the reason I said there's so many answers to this question, is then you pivot into the mental health of it all. And just like, I was not diagnosed with ADD and OCD until my 30s, right? And for Max, I think there's this very, it's just a real thing that women don't get diagnosed as easily or as quickly as men do.
Mm.
And they're better at masking it. So I just wanted to put that in Max a little bit, and to show that even though she's better at, masking or performing, she's still in need of help and attention as well. And then something we're going to explore a little bit later in season 4 too is, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like, her parents are also part of this. Like, what's their history with mental health? Like, where does this come from? Because honestly, the theme of the show is everyone's fighting a battle you can't see. We just happen to go inside Max and Marcus's head, but you could shine a spotlight on any character and see the battle they're fighting and find it sympathetic and relatable, because I mean, I really do think everyone is just out here trying their best.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, again, I talked about how true to life this show is, the series is, even though it's obvious that sometimes you have to go over the top to give the sugar rush to the audience. But there are some very serious moments that I found very affecting. Uh, I'm thinking of the breakup scene in season 2 in the
Yep. I
empty
love that.
school. The school corridor, it's empty. They are bracketed by lockers. That's an evergreen scene, right? We've seen that scene 10 times. And you could have gotten it wrong so easily, but you did not. That really stung me, that scene. and it really sent me back. From a technical point of view, as a writer, how did you make that scene so believable?
I mean, I wrote about a real breakup.
Ah, there you go.
Be honest. Yeah. I think that it's funny because it always starts for me, writing always starts with like a spark of truth of something that happened to me. And then from there, you bring it, you include other writers in the room and what's their spark of truth of something that happened to them. Or how do you take the spark that you brought in and how do you all deepen it, make it better, and then also make it work for these characters and this story? Then you bring it to set, and the actors, I mean, they're, if you see the show, I really don't even have to. The actors are beyond, like, we're blessed
Right,
to have the actors we have. We keep
right.
leveling up the story and they keep rising to meet it. And the actors know their characters. I mean, I will have a lot of conversations with the actors about their characters and change things based on those conversations. So then they put their spin on it. Then you have the director. So it really, it's maybe starts with like a real breakup I had, but by the time it gets to Marcus and Ginny, so many people have their hand on it. Um, I mean, TV is really a collaborative process, and I think the more hands on the more capable hands on something, the better, because
Yeah,
that is
I,
yeah.
I just think it could have gone wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
thinking
that's why I'm on set yelling at everyone.
right. Okay, because I won't mention it, but I'm thinking of a film that I saw a few years ago that had almost the same scene, and it was horrible. I just was sitting there saying, I don't believe this at all.
Yeah.
And yet, when I was so deep into that scene, that it was one of those, transportive experiences where I really forgot that I was watching a show. Any rate, off to that.
Well, just to go into that breakup a beat, just to kind of deep dive into that scene, um, the key element, the key thing that Ginny says in that scene for me is like, "Are you okay? Never holding me again?" Because I think that is the true thing that's happening to her in that scene is he's irrevocably changing the dynamic of their relationship. This is a character who's always moving, always losing like, right, she doesn't even have friends in her other school, she's always on the move. This is a person who's been very, very stable for her home base, a place where she's felt secure, which is not, it's not a character who gets to feel secure often. And she's saying, "Are you okay changing this dynamic? Are you okay never holding me again?" Severing that, like just butchering it. And when he doesn't, when he's like, "Yeah, basically I am," that to her just, it breaks her completely. For him, I think the most important thing he says is, you know, I mean, he's really, really, really in a place of unable to be loved by someone in that moment, and he's unable to give love, he's unable to receive love, because he is truly in the very center of a depressive episode. And so when he's, it's cliche, but when he's like, "It's not you, it's me, I promise," like, it really is, like, he really does mean that. He loves Ginny, but he's not capable in that moment to be with her.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Can we turn to Georgia for a bit?
Sure. Yeah.
I will tread gently now. Um, Tell me about how you um, described her in your early drafts. How did you see her when you were first sketching her?
um she just was Georgia, like, right away. Like, there wasn't really much. I felt her more than I thought about her. I mean, I think that's true of every character, if I'm going to be really honest. I felt her more than I thought about her, where just like instinctively I knew that she would punch the nose of anyone who messed with Austin. Instinctively, I knew that she would be able to put on a smile and get away with murder. How I described her in the pitch to Netflix was, she's like, what was my exact quote? It was like, she's like the Hulk. When she's scary, but when you're under attack, you don't want anyone else fighting on your side. And that, I think, and I think I mean, I was a little tongue in cheek in the pitch, but I think I was like, she's sometimes harmful as a mother, and she's going through her own psychological, she's always running from her past and her deep trauma. This is a character who's like got a lot going on and hasn't processed any of it. She's also a murderer and has killed, multiple people. She's so pretty though. Like, and so, similar to like the tone of the show, like, and I will say this, Georgia, the character, is the one who's responsible for making the tone of the show work. And Brienne, Brienne was the last person cast for this show because I was so adamant on finding the right Georgia, because I knew that if we did not have the right Georgia, the show would fail just easily and quickly, because the tone is so all over the place. George is the one who needs to balance it and kind of transition us believably from camp and happy to dark and scary to, loving mother. I mean, she has so much to carry, and Bree is able, I mean, I would say season 3, just the mere fact that the main character, there's a really ambitious storytelling risk to put the main character on house arrest and only let her go to court or to her home for 9 episodes of the season.
Right.
And the reason that that is not so freaking dull is because of Brienne's performance. Like you just watch her transition from these different versions of herself and versions of the character, and her quick thinking and her nimbleness and her ability to switch tones. I mean, that's what makes that character just so hypnotizing, is you believe her as a murderer and you believe her as a loving mother. And that's a really interesting dichotomy.
Yeah. Do you like her?
Georgia, the character?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love her. I love her, but I'm also I'm shocked. I'm shocked by the amount of love the fans have for her.
Oh,
Because
don't. Oh, boo.
I,
Oh.
I think that in the writer's room, we're very aware of the harm she's causing her children. And and we can forgive it in the sense that we understand what she herself has gone through, and we're her biggest champions. Like we love her, but we don't excuse her behavior as without consequence. Like what she does to other characters is real and is wrong. And that's true. That doesn't mean we don't love her. That doesn't mean she's not our hero of the show. As well as Ginny's our hero of the show, because I think we really view the world through the eyes of Ginny as much as we follow the tone of the show through Georgia.
Well, this speaks to the reader, viewer, listener experience. I don't like her. I mean,
and you're welcome to that opinion.
No. I mean, I find her selfish, dishonest, manipulative, judgmental, and she's almost always wrong.
Yeah.
But as a writer, I see her as fascinating. I would love to be able to write a character like that.
Yeah.
That is so, I mean, you love her, I don't.
That's fine.
We're talking about the same character.
Yeah.
So, that's an achievement for a writer to create somebody like that.
I would argue almost every character in the show is like that. Like we like mess. Like we lean into chaos and mess on the show. And I think that we don't shy away from it at all. And I mean, honestly, I'm having more of a conversation with the fans than I think even they realize. It's like there will be characters coming out of season 1 where they're like, we love this character. They can do no wrong. Get behind me. I'll fight for you. I'll ride for you. And I'm like, I'm going to change it. I'm going to challenge it. You got like your challenge accepted. And then there'll be characters where it's like, I hate this character. They're my least favorite character. I hate them so much. And I'll be like, challenge accepted.
But to your credit, to the credit of all the writers,
yeah,
her husband Paul,
yeah,
enumerates all the reasons why he can't stand her now, or what's wrong with her.
Yep.
In episode 8 of the 3rd season, and boy, you give it to her with both barrels in that scene. And I mean, my reaction was, he's right.
Yeah.
And,
well, he's right, but he's wrong. He's wrong to hit the wall near her head. That's wrong. But
yes, that's true.
But I think that honestly, but you see how he got there. And I think,
right.
But then she's right to say, I didn't cause anything to come out that wasn't in there already, because that's true too. So I think, with Paul, the question we asked ourselves, and this is why every question has more than one answer. because we're juggling a lot and we're not really picking a side as we write these characters. We're allowing them to breathe and be messy and exist. For Paul, I agree with you. I understand where he's coming from in that scene. It's heartbreaking. This is a man who all he's ever wanted was a family. He's always been 2 toes down for Georgia, 10 toes down for Georgia. And then you have him pushed to a place where it's really his career on the line, his image on the line. And she keeps lying to him. I mean, since season 1, he's been consistent. Don't lie to me. She keeps not telling him the whole story. However, you also see a character who at the end of the day maybe isn't as loyal as Georgia would need a partner to be, right?
Yeah,
who isn't, and he thinks he has been. And I don't know who's right in that argument, but I think that it's my favorite scenes to write are the ones where both characters have a valid point of view and a valid experience. That scene is one of the scenes I'm most proud of for season 3. But I can name a ton of scenes that my favorite quality of the scene, and I think the reason the scene works on an undercurrent level is because each character is right and wrong, both at the same time. And I think that is what makes it so compelling and why everyone can't come to a consensus on whether a character is, good or bad, so to speak.
Right. I'm worried about Ginny.
Sure.
I think Ginny is beginning to display characteristics of her mother.
Yeah.
How could you have done that to me, Sarah? Now I have to wait 2 years for resolution?
So not quite, because I obviously don't have a date yet for when we'll drop, but it will be. I'll answer 2 of the questions that I don't think you realize you just asked a question with that last said,
right. Okay.
But how it worked in season 1 and season 2 is we had to wait until the show. So we would finish filming the show. I would, work on post-production with the post team until, that takes a bunch of months, whatever. And then Netflix takes the show and they need 3 months to do all of the languages that they do because they drop it everywhere at the same time. So it needs all of the translations. So it's only after all of that they can drop it on Netflix. And then they like to wait a month to get all the numbers in before they'll decide whether or not to renew it. So that's why there was such a long gap between 1 and 2. There was an even longer gap because of the writer's strike between 2 and 3. The beauty of them picking up season 3 and season 4 in one, they picked them up together. It was a double season pickup. Is we've already begun the writer's room for season 4. So if this was the timeline of season 1 and 2, we would still be waiting to hear from Netflix on whether or not they wanted another season. But because we don't have to do that this time around, we're halfway through the writer's room. So fans are going to get season 4 much faster than they've ever gotten any other season of the show.
Glad to hear it. Just one more question. The music plays such a good role in the series. It seems to me that every song that's picked is the right song for the moment. I know Lily Hayden a little bit.
You know Lily? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
she's a pip. There's nobody like Lily.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's the full dose for sure. But boy, I love the music that you've picked out, and I would say that this is the kind of music young people are listening to that a lot of people are going to be exposed to. I think you've done a wonderful job in that aspect of presenting a full universe.
Yeah. So Lily and Ben are our composers. So they do the original music for the show, right? Anytime you hear George's theme or George and Paul's first dance, or or the musicals, or any song that isn't a needle drop or a radio song is Lily and Ben. And Lily and Ben. So Ben and I went to high school together, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and he brought in Lily, who's a genius, frankly, and like the two of them together. It's some of my favorite work to do on the show is to have the live composer sessions with Ben and Lily, because you're working with these two masters of their craft, but like I get to like, I'm not a music person, but I get to like somehow be a part of it. So God bless them. They are so patient with me because they'll like compose this beautiful thing and I'll be like, let's add a whistle. Or like, what if it's like, do, 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 and they have to like interpret that and make it fucking, sorry, excuse me. I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right.
Make it a song for the show. But they are so brilliant. Oh man, I love working with them. I learned early on in season one because we were especially in season one, we were a low budget show, low budget, very limited time to shoot. Really had to pare down our scripts. Don't have a lot of time to get things. So it's really a testament to our crew that the show looks as elevated as it did, especially in season one. And then I would add, I learned really quickly on in season one how important music was to making something that might not be working work beautifully. It just totally changes the vibe immediately. So we have phenomenal music supervisors who help us, who like source music for the show. But I will say, I also love doing that too. And Deb, who was the showrunner for season 1 and 2, she was also great at it. And then I also use suggestions from the actors sometimes too. So there's a song in season 3 that Scott sent me. Season 2 has, I think, a few songs that Felix suggested. So something that I'll do is I'll actually troll TikTok or Spotify and try to find artists that don't have a lot of listens to them.
Right.
Because that means that we can probably afford them, and B, it's really great to give artists an opportunity to be showcased.
Sure.
I mean, I was given this chance. I didn't have any prior credits. Deb was a first-time showrunner. Anya Adams, who directed our pilot episode and was our pilot director, which, is a big deal in TV. It helps set the tone for the whole show. She was a first-time pilot director. So Tony, we got right out of college, and she is the powerhouse that she is. So I think that giving people a chance who haven't necessarily been, quote unquote, proven by the industry yet is a really important thing for me. So yeah, and with our music supervisors who really are phenomenal. I mean, they do most of it, but I think that that's one of my secret pleasures of the show is like finding a song or two from like an unknown artist on Spotify or TikTok and throwing it into the show.
Has anybody put together a playlist?
Yeah, there's an official playlist on Netflix actually, and I have a friend. I throw as much of my friends' music into the show as I can too, because I have a lot of musical friends who are brilliant. So I'll like keep tabs. I'll be like, how's your music going on the playlist? I like love to hear about it, honestly. I don't think I ever answered your Ginny question. Did I?
I was worried about Ginny, and
you're worried about Ginny. Yeah.
But you told me I don't have to worry for long.
That's not what I said. You definitely
or I might have to worry more.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because again, like two things being true at once. On one hand, I agree there's something very tragic about seeing Ginny become like her mother. There's also something kind of powerful about it because this is a character who has always been kind of, the product of someone else's decisions. So to see her kind of step into this more healed role, she's not self-harming, she's taking control. It's a death and a birth at the same time. And so I think it's both things. It's tragic and it's powerful.
Great. My guest has been Sarah Lampert, writer, executive producer, creative force behind the highly engaging and hugely successful Ginny and Georgia, now in its 3rd season on Netflix. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you so much for Ginny and Georgia.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry I swore.
No, it's okay. Writers at Work is a production of Bliss Publications. Erin Mitchell is our producer. Music is by Joni Mitchell, performed by Keith Jarrett. For more, see writersatworkpodcast.com. I'm your host, Jim Fusilli. Until next time, happy reading.